I don't know why this is doing that.
There we go. We are live.
Now we're recording.
Recording. All right,
All right,
thank you.
we're back on the record.
Back on the record. So let me say this, from my arrival here, I've had a very, very clear strategy in which I have very effectively communicated as we marketed for the village, as well as kind of set expectations for what a world-class district needs. And that is the highest paid teachers. And I've said publicly, highest paid teachers on the Treasure Coast. That has been the marketing that I pushed out for the village, and that is a commitment that just will be honored. That comes off the table. It's not anything that is not out there. I understand. And for us to be the highest performing district on the Treasure Coast, you honor those who do the most work, which are teachers. And I am a son of a teacher, and I was a teacher. So strategy number one is to attract the best teachers. I don't want to pay teachers just for the fact of paying teachers. I want to pay the absolute best teachers. And as I walk and I see what's going on in our schools, I'm encouraged that we could really create, through a contract, through relationships, a world-class district. So I don't want there to be any concern that I will not honor anything that I did not say. I will. I will honor everything that I said, which is to ensure we have the highest paid teachers on the Treasure Coast. And we, through conversation and through dialogue, attack some very, very complex issues that I think are in our contract, which apparently have not been discussed, in order to ensure we are connected through a contract that ensures we can, in fact, have that district for our students. And circling back with my team, I'm like, well, where are the things that we want in this contract? And apparently they haven't been discussed yet, and that's no fault of yours. But that is disappointing from my standpoint. I want to drastically increase compensation to really be creative in looking at our contract to really put us in a position to really be the absolute highest performer. And I should say it again, highest performing district on the Treasure Coast deserves to have the highest performing teachers on the Treasure Coast. And that is what we need to collectively, in my mind, be working towards. When I look at this agreement, it would require, and Ron, you can speak to it, a reduction in force, a drastic reduction in force. The millage money that we claimed is not new millage money. It's not money that it's coming into this district. Unfortunately, it's district that has been part of for what, 12 years? 8 years. So it really is looking at how this money has been spent. I will say it on the record, because we're on the record. It hasn't been used effectively. It hasn't been used efficiently. It hasn't been used with the intent in which it should have been used. We need to begin to correct that. We have $4.5 million on reserve. Those were cost savings. Those are reductions of positions. The school-based allocation model, which is a recurring cost, reduction in discretionary funds. We've scoured the budget in year one, in the midst of COVID, to say, let's begin to pay teachers as well as everybody else. That was the $4.5 million we had, completely transparent, that we cut out and need to continue to cut out and be in looking at how we're staffing schools, positions that we have in place, both here at the district as well as in school sites. Are they in the best interest of children? Or is there a more cost-efficient way? And those, I'm not saying I know what those things are, because I don't, but that's the dialogue and that's the conversation I really want us to have, to be unique in how we are connected through a contract to be world-class. And then I look at what Ron continues to remind me of that money we have saved. We don't know what the state is going to take this year, whether it's 2%, whether it's 3%, whether it's all of it. And you can't make a deal with money you don't know that you're going to have. And if it's making a deal this year, and then it becomes a recurring cost. And we don't know what the hit's going to be this year until January, February, March at the latest. So I can't give a commitment beyond dollars that I may or may not have. And there may be an additional cut into the following year. So I say all of that, and I look back and I look at the reality of where we're at, and my heart breaks. And I'll just be straight up honest, because we're not in a position to go through this heated conversation. And I don't want it to be heated. I don't want it to be anything other than problem solving and figuring out how we do this collectively. And I say that because tensions are high in our schools. As Jennifer can contest to, just in a call to get information, I feel the same way teachers feel. The only difference is I haven't been doing this for 20 years. I'm new at this job. So it's like, we just collectively, we don't need this. We have a board coming on who's going to support and has a high expectation. We have a commitment that I'm going to honor. And I would tell you, just to be honest and to overshare, no, we're going to figure it out. Make it happen, Ron. We're going to figure it out. How do we honor what I said? And we're going to honor what I said. That's just it. But I can't overcommit into that other year. And I really, really want to begin the conversations on things that I think improve the quality of service and support that we need to be providing our kids. So we are not only the highest paid, but the highest performing. And that is what we collectively need to do for our children. So with that being said, and I also say this, I would love to counter, and this is just Dave Moore. I think where the contract salary schedule is flawed the most is on the top end. I think the teachers who are getting cheated the most are on the top end. When I look at salary schedules across the state, where the variance is the biggest is the teachers that are on the top end. I would wonder if giving everyone the same raise is absolutely the fairest to those who have been doing this work for the longest amount of time. So I think there's different models that we could explore on saying, hey, in comparison to other districts, we have right now, before this bill was approved, we have the fourth highest beginning teacher pay. Now, you guys can take credit for that. We can't, but that's what was negotiated. That's what we have. And praise the Lord that we do, because we have the fourth highest, or had the fourth highest beginning teacher pay, we have all this extra money to do two things. A, get to 47.5, which 5-6 other districts are going to be able to get to. 7 tops, and get to.
But they have to get as close as they can.
Yeah, me and you too. I thought the same thing too. So,
I thought it was a directive.
I start seeing deals.
They have to use the 80% to get as close to 47 as possible.
Okay,
Some
okay.
counties are
Right.
low enough, they will not make it even paid.
Yes, I had to break that news to my
So we're
daughter.
not-
It works in Leon County,
Oh.
so it was very tough. We can get to the 47.5 and be one of what I know is 5 districts who are going to get to 47.5. So we're going to go from the 5th highest district to, I think, the 2nd. I think there's a district who's doing 47.7, which I thought we were initially going to do as well. I know that was part of the initial
were
thing.
going to be the top.
Right, but the same thing.
Is that Tampa?
So
Collier County?
I see,
Collier is the
plus
easiest.
we could give, the initial was 2.85%, which is among the tops of everything else. So I say all of that to say what I really would like to do is get to the 47.5, or those under the 47.5, offer you 4% for everybody else, close this year, and begin to open for next year to figure out how do we ensure in a multi-year contract, we are the highest paid teachers on the Treasure Coast. We are a paid leader across the state of Florida, and we have an innovative, creative contract, which is really out there. I'm willing to go wherever you want to go to really look at how we're compensating, look at how we're organizing our schools, what we're funding in our schools, compensation, rewards. I'm all in. I'm all in. Close this year at that 4% in exchange for closing this year. All those things that I know we want, and collectively, I think as we begin to have those conversations, you're going to say those are good things. Those are the good conversations that we need to have. But we begin that, starting, as soon as we ratify, looking at what can be a multi-year. So, Mr. Fagan,
Couple comments. As we already said, we got the 4.5. The state issued their long-range plan, which is really 3 years. He's balancing the budget on the backs of CARES. He can't do that. Not the way CARES is written. CARES is written for specific line use only. It's not stimulus money. When the 2007 kicked in and they gave us all that money from stimulus, they said, here's revenue. Play replacement, have a nice day. There was no restrictions. CARES is specific. Could Congress change that? Yes. Has there been discussion they would do that? Yes. But they haven't done anything yet, so I don't know. Florida ended the budget with a $3 billion deficit. He still has a deficit. Is our revenues up so far this year? Yes, they are up a little bit. They're balancing, but he still has a $3 billion deficit from the prior year. There's where the rub comes. He's got to fix last year. If revenues come in positive, got a new president, he's very pro on schools, maybe some changes will come around. But our governor still has to fix this year before anything else happens. That we won't know until after probably the first of the year, until they get back in there and start their session. The next thing is, I happen to be on a webinar the other day, they're concerned that this is still going to continue to have an economic impact. There may not be as much money next year. We won't know that. Well, may not be as much money then in the second year thereafter. There is going to be an economic downfall unless new administration pumps in a lot more money. Those are 3 very big factors that could have a detrimental effect on the long-term financial stability of the district. We're basically asking, we know what we have today, that's what we can offer. We can't promise what's going to be there in 2 or 3 years.
So essentially, you're worried about the reoccurring costs.
Absolutely.
Tom,
Yeah.
I thought we found the reoccurring costs for them.
Yeah. Give me just a second. So I think when I look at your budget historically, there has been some reoccurring funding that occurs in one of your line items. So give me just a second to pull this up.
The one that every glasses turn blue.
Hey, that's kind of cool.
it's funny you said that. I was wondering if the lights were blue. I was looking at Mike's glasses and the lights behind.
Oh, yeah.
Are they blue or are they?
Yeah, he's looking at his screen. His screen is blue.
And Tom's lights are blue. We were correct.
Not only reoccurring costs, but you could have a funding reduction next year. They reduce the gas.
And one more thing, just for clarification, the 2022 budget, we won't know exactly what that looks like. The session will start in March. Governor will release his budget probably in February, 1st of March. Conference will be probably the last week or 2 in April. So just wanted to say 21-22 budget, which will be the session coming up.
Okay, so if you look in your AFR and district summary budget, which are actually the 149 and 130.
As big as possible, please.
Hopefully Ron is very familiar with these numbers.
Yeah, these are very small numbers. Yeah, I'll try to make them bigger. So when you look historically at AFR is your annual financial report, and DSB stands for your district summary budget. So when you look historically back through your condition ratio and your budgets, you can see that your total revenues have been pretty steady, 143, 145, 147, and this year you're actually predicting, or at the beginning of the year you were predicting 154. So you can see here that is a financial condition ratio of 5%. So you are above the statutory limit, which is 3%. So they want you to keep that 3% fund balance. So right there, you actually do have an additional $3 million available just in the amount of your financial condition ratio above the statutory requirement. Now, I believe you guys have a board policy for 5%, correct?
We do.
Or do you?
We do.
We do.
Yeah, so that's not atypical for a district your size. But when you go over here and you look at your appropriations from year to year, and I know this is really, really small, so I will kind of break this down for you. If you look at your materials and supply line item, so that's what I would ask you guys to do, is to go look historically at your materials and supplies, which is instruction 5,000, materials and supplies 500. So year after year, you guys tend to budget somewhere around 10 or $11 million in this the last couple of years, but you've actually only been spending about $2 or $3 million. So right there, you have some available funding because you have historically only spent between $2 and $3 million on materials and supplies, and yet you budgeted $10 million for materials and supplies this year. So, and I know you got the CARES Act, and I know that's separate. So I know you guys may have additional needs for materials and supplies this year, but it still doesn't account for those additional like $7 million in that line item. So we think that you do have the money in that line item that you could shift around because you're not spending that money on materials and supplies, you're saving it.
All right, can you go back to your first sheet for me?
Yeah, so let me bring that back up. I sometimes accidentally close things in Teams rather than, so let me pop it out into the desktop app. So I don't know how much you guys use Teams, but it's kind of convenient sometimes, but sometimes it accidentally closes things. So yeah, this is your fund balances, and I'll bring this back up. Here, let me share it. Can you see that?
No, I'm still seeing the appropriations.
Okay. Is that right? Can you see it now?
Okay. Are those actual numbers or budgeted numbers?
The DSBs are budgeted numbers, and the AFRs are actual numbers. So this year I have your DSBs, your budgeted number here for 2021, and I have your AFR at the end of 1920. And then this is your 1920 budget, and then your 1819 AFR, and then your 1819 budget, and then I just have the AFRs for 1617 and 1718. I didn't do the budgets for those.
Is this all funds or only general fund?
This is total revenues 3,000. So this one is your overall fund balance. Right here, I'm just tracking your total revenues, which is 3,000, and then your assigned and unassigned fund balance. That's the only thing this sheet shows. So
those figures of 145 million or so must be only general fund. So where's my total expenditure, say for last year, 1920?
That's under this one, under appropriations. So you can actually see the total expenditures. So for 1920, so your 1920 AFR total expenditures was 158.
All right, so what was my total revenue less my total expenditures?
158 minus the other page is fund balance is 151.
Okay, so I had revenue of 151 and expenditures of 158, so I'm short $8 million. How'd that cover it?
I'm assuming your materials and supplies budget, but I don't know, maybe you have a different answer.
We're talking actuals now. You gotta throw the budget away. Budget don't mean anything now.
Yeah.
It's actual revenue less actual expenditures. I could put $100 million on my material line, but by the end of the year, I would have had to move that around throughout my budget amendments. So it's just real hard money. I made 151 million. I paid 158. I'm $7 million short. How'd that cover it? Where's my transfers?
I don't have the transfers on this page, but
That's fine. That's fine. Transfers approximately approximately $6 million. So if I lost 7, brought in 6, I'm still short $1 million. My fund balance went down from the prior year approximately $2 million, which means no matter what I budget, I still burn down my fund balance by $2 million. So you are right. You did find that money on the budget line, but when you at the end of the year, it's actual revenue less actual expenditures. And then any deficit I'm going to cover through my transfers, And if I'm still short, I go into fund balance. That's exactly what happened last year. Your fund balance went from 18 million to 16 million. So I budgeted that additional fund balance, for argument's sake, in my materials line. By the end of the year, I had to shift it around to balance my accounts, where ultimately I still spent 158 million, but only brought in 151. Bringing transfers of 4, now I'm still short 3. Fund balance goes down by 3, which is exactly what happened this year. So if I continue.
Yeah, but the AFR numbers and the DSB numbers don't include the fund balance. So you see the fund balance here. So you rolled it temporarily out of materials and supplies into assigned and unassigned fund balance. So you see that at the end of last year, you had an assigned fund balance of 8 million and an unassigned fund balance of 4 million. So you're maintaining that balance throughout your funds, your fund balance, your assigned and unassigned, and then at the end of the year, that's where it is. And then at the beginning of the year, you roll it into materials and supplies, which you did again this year because you have $11 million in materials and supplies this year.
All right, so I got $3 million.
Sorry, $10 million. Yeah.
All right, so I got $3 million above my cushion, you said, right? Can you go back to your other spreadsheet?
Yeah, you're $3 million above your, yes. So that's one part of it, yeah.
All right, so that's $3 million above what I need in my fund balance. Oh, you there? Okay.
Yep, yeah. You can see I was sharing it, yes. $3 million, that's right here, yes. That's $3 million.
So I have that cushion there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that one-time money or reoccurring money?
Well, it seems to be reoccurring because it seems to reoccur every year. So you can see that every year you have a cushion somewhere between, in your AFRs, you have a cushion between 11, 8, 9, 8, but then your DSBs, you have them around 3. So yeah, it's recurring because it recurs into your AFR at the end of every year. So you can see here, when you track the AFR, it went from 11, and it'd go down a little bit this year to 8, and then it went back up to 9, and went down a little bit. You're right, you did go down a little bit. You went down $1 million last year.
All right, but for last year, your reoccurring fund balance is one-time money. Once I spend my fund balance, it's gone forever. So if I have that cushion now and it's in my fund balance, once I spend it, it's gone. Because it won't roll no more. And you're right, I did balance it. It went in, it was more than what I needed overall. That's why I carry a $7.5 million fund balance right now, 5%. Could you reduce it down to 3? Absolutely. But again, once you do that, that's one-time money. That's not reoccurring. That's your savings account. You're still spending $158 million on a $151 million budget. And you roll the 3 to 5 million, whatever number you use. Once you spend that money, that's gone. Now your 158 is 162. I still brought in 100. Let's say I got $2 million more money from the state. I'm still now 152, 153. But now I'm spending 161, 162, 163. I'm still deficit, but now I don't have my fund balance. In a couple of years, you'll be below 3%. That makes sense?
Yeah, I understand how math works, yes. But
No,
I still think that you still have the money because you have it in your materials and supply line item. Because right there you have $7 million, and we're asking for less than $7 million. So.
Yeah, and the only thing I'm saying is you just can't look at the budget. You have to look historically at where your revenues and expenditures have been, and just pick a line item and say increase it by $5 million, and what's that going to do to you? That means I'd have to cut $5 million somewhere else.
Yeah, from materials and supplies. You can move it from materials and supplies to instructional salaries. So we could do it right here, right? So we just move it from materials and supplies, which is 5,500 to 5,100. So this would go up by that amount. So,
We didn't really say it. We said one.
Yes.
So that shows up in that line item every year.
But this is the
That
same.
sounds like a savings account to me.
No, your savings account is fund.
Yeah.
Because again, a That's all you have. Did I have a savings account to begin with? Yes, but by the end of the year, obviously I spent it because I only had a $16 million fund balance.
Then how do we roll it over in there again this year?
You appropriated and didn't spend it. But you still have, your fund balance has gone from 28 to 26 to 18 to 14. You're continuing to burn more money than you bring in. But it's a complicated concept, but the end result is very, very easy. At the end of the year, it's revenue minus expenditures.
So we don't plan on using the millage for teacher salaries at all?
Yes, it will be. Yes, it will be. I just don't have another $5.5 million in the budget this year, nor assuming I have another $5.5 million next year above what's currently in the budget today. We'd have to cut 100 positions, assuming everybody made 50 grand, to bring that 5.4 back. I'd have to cut a recurring expense.
None of you use the money for materials.
But that money gets spent somewhere else, so that's what I was asking them, like, if we budgeted that amount and only spent 2 million, but yet we still spent more than what we budgeted for, so did we go over in salaries altogether? I mean, it's not like it was there, I mean,
Yeah, Tom, did you look at any of the line items between actuals and budget at the AFR?
Yeah, so you want to know about salaries?
Look at everything that was either negative or positive. You should have a line item on the AFR where you will show an actual comparison between budget and actual. You got that?
Yeah, you did go over a little bit in salaries last year by about $1 million. So that's where you burned through your fund balance, 995. But that's, and a little bit over in benefits as well. But you have other areas where you were under, and so, and so in 6,500.
But do you show a total by line item of revenue minus expenditures and bring it all the way down to the bottom to show me a net loss or net profit? Do you
Yeah,
show
return to fund balance, $8 million.
Okay, no.
That's 1819.
That's
So,
budget.
well, let me go back.
Show me actual revenues.
So AFR, 1819 AFR, 1920 AFR.
Let's do
So-
19. You got a copy of the AFR? 1920?
Not, yeah, I do. Hold on.
Hang on. Let me go get my copy real quick.
Oh, good.
Doing a quarantine over there, are you?
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
I have one more. Hey, give it or get it.
So I got that. Yeah.
Anybody's
Yeah,
check.
Negative. All is well.
All is well.
For now.
That's gonna be my next question.
I'll be doing the board meeting tomorrow from Teams, or
We can help with this.
When does Peggy come?
Tomorrow.
Ooh.
Oh, here it goes.
Thanks for the question.
Question, go ahead and ask.
What?
Did you have?
Hands up.
Your hands up, you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question, but
Yeah, okay, well now we can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Barely.
Not yet.
You were so loud a second ago and now we can barely hear you.
Oh my goodness, I don't know why. Okay, is this better?
That's better, thank you.
Okay, so I said I do have a question, but I'm going to hold on it for a little bit.
Okay.
That's because I want Fagan to be there. So, we'll come back together in a second.
Can we talk about a separate thing since I have you both here in the room at the same time?
Yes.
Please, can we do something with sign-ins for kindergarten? I can't have another teacher crying. I just can't.
For what?
The sign-ons for kindergarten. It's ridiculous. They're cleaning it now. Now the answer is they're in the lab, but they're not assigned lab time in the computer lab. They're in the classroom. So my teachers are still spending 10, 15 minutes
Hey, Tom.
to sign them in.
Yeah.
You got page 76 of the AFR?
They kind of get
That is very bottom lower right-hand corner.
Either simplify the
I have it as an Excel spreadsheet, so I don't know if it has page numbers on it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't saw this.
You're looking for ESC 145,
why Greg will not respond to multiple emails.
and at the very top of the page, say page 21 probably, general fund.
They can't keep.
Page 21. Okay, yeah, it does have page numbers. It's on the side. They're really small. Hold on.
Last year, there's a lot of me on that too. Last year they had the
And at the top, it should say schedule of revenues, expenditures,
What is
for
it?
fund balance.
They
I mean,
had
for
card, they
general.
had card for last name.
Hey, Peanut Gallery, we're back.
Right, okay, so they did use their last name, first initial, and all the rest.
Because
The password was a simple password.
Yeah, that's
simple
easy.
password.
I can't have it, I mean, I have to just for trying left and right.
That's me.
ABC
123.
They need to put their last names. Kindergarten's never complained.
All right, so what am I looking for? Because this says page 21, but it doesn't say, because it's an Excel spreadsheet, not a,
Can you show it to
Yeah.
me? Can you share it?
yeah.
I can find out what page 21 you got first. You on the 145, right? ESC 145? No, you're on the what? You're on the 348.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I thought you said the AFR, so that's what I opened.
What is, but the 145 is in the back of the AFR.
Oh, okay. I think you sent that to me too.
So I don't know how we give them an account. That's
They're literally spending 10, 15 minutes on
Microsoft.
student for
It has to meet certain security parameters like the whole.
And the problem is, we don't have laptops, they don't have laptops.
it. They can't use it within their classrooms.
So that's what, I mean, we need to be very good explaining more eloquently. Now I understand what it used to be, that helps.
Brain fog,
From my
100%.
understanding, is that
Read this.
it has something to do with the security credentials, minimum security credentials, you know, you log in.
Find it.
Let's have a special character and a number and everything.
It's probably gonna, if you got the Excel, I guess it's on a separate tab, every fund.
I
Maybe.
don't know if there was an update. That's why we need Greg in here to explain all the ins and outs, because you guys are gonna, what if, man, I don't know, because I'm not the IT guy. I just know what he told me that.
I don't have it readily available, so
All right.
We had to update that.
And I understand that.
just tell me what you got and then you can scan it to me later or you can send it to me later.
But do you have an ESC 145? Did I send that to you?
I don't recall seeing that, no, but I mean, you might have, because I get a lot of emails, so
Okay, I got you.
I'm not gonna call you a liar, I just don't see it right now.
That's fine, that's cool.
So, yeah,
So here's what I'm gonna do, Tom, I'm gonna send this page to you,
okay,
and what you're gonna see is you're gonna see your numbers. You're gonna see final revenue of about 151, and you're gonna see final expenditures of 158.
yeah, I do see that.
Right, and then you're gonna see variances between original budget, final budget, and et cetera. And when you go down to the bottom, total difference between revenue and expenditures, plus your transfers is I'm still short $600,000. And then the change to fund balance is 8 million, which is the same 8 million you say you keep seeing, which is true. But if I spend that 5 million more out of this 8, that means I roll 3, and that's one-time money. The next year, if they cut my revenue or any of the expenditures increase, you might be now really tapping into your ending fund balance. And like for your, now keep in mind, this report does not show it by object, so it won't show it to you by like main, it will show you by function. So it'll show you instructional. So right off the top of my head, I can't find the 10 million. I should have another report that I can run to see what happened to the 10 million from the beginning of the year to the end of the year.
Yeah,
But when I send this to you, you'll see you're 151 minus your 158, which means I was short $6.5 million. Then I brought in money from capital. So my net change was a short 2 million, and I still got the 16 million, which is okay. I rolled that 16 million. I used basically 10 million of it for next year's budget, which you could argue is your $10 million in materials, right? And I needed the other 7 million for my fund balance. Okay, so I'm rolling that over, but once I roll that over, that's only one-time money.
in the lab number.
Because it's what's left over from, not just this year, like you said, you saw multiple years of where you saw it roll. So a little bit year, if the state gives me 3 million and I only spend 2 million, well, then I got 1 million of that reoccurring money
Right,
rolling
you have
over.
$1 million that you roll
Right.
over, yeah.
But then as I keep going, if I have a good year, I might roll a little bit more, but unless the state increases me as equal to or more than that, then that's really just one-time money. That's what I get scared of. If it's only
Right.
one time, if the state only gave me $3 million more money, I can only really appropriate $3 million of new appropriations, or else I'll start running short. But I'll scan that and shoot that to you, and we can talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, and then, so I have a question about the millage. So the millage, it doesn't actually, does it actually show up on these documents, or do you do that separately?
It's in a general fund, where there's an annual report that we used to do, and we still do every year. We're gonna start taking a monthly report to the board, showing where the money comes in, the amount that's been appropriated, and et cetera, but it doesn't show up here yet. And it will start showing up in the monthly financials.
Okay, it will start showing up because it's just now getting all the way through the system, right?
And it's part of general fund, but it's in a separate fund. But going forward, we're gonna have a separate document that carves it out. So it's part of your 151 million.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, it's part of that $98 million you see at the top in your total revenue.
Okay. Gotcha. So do you guys have counters on other things? So on the other proposals we gave you? I think maybe that's the best place to go from here, isn't it? Oop, I think we may be muted.
For some reason, we got muted. I don't know why.
Oh, okay. It got very quiet all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So
So-
sorry, go ahead.
No,
I know, I would ask you to consider that 4% closing this year and immediately opening up for next year, which would be those other areas, which puts us in a scenario where we look at and clarify what we had available in this year and ultimately kind of forward fund that money for teacher raises when we determine what that amount would be after the state does whatever the state is going to do. And that all of the other issues, I think those take time and take conversation, and I think the solution can be created, but I don't want to rush what will be our contract.
Yeah, so, I too would ask you guys I too would ask you guys to consider our proposal for a couple of reasons. I don't want to
Not
get,
as it's written, no. We kindly will not.
you know, one of the reasons is we don't want to get past the current year. I'd like us to get that finished so our teachers and our incoming teachers have the assurance that this year's contract is done. And I think that would be a big positive. The second reason is our budget is what it is, and I'd like to see us, you know, get the money that we know we can to the people that are entitled to it, because that's a process, right? We have to get it ratified, it has to go through the board, it has to go to the Department of Education, they have to approve it, then they give us the money, and then we pay it. So this alone is a process, and we'd like to get that started, so that can be done. The third reason is, you know, I don't want us to get behind the 8 ball like we were when I first got here. It's very hard to catch up that way. It caused, you know, a lot of stress for people. It was hard to hire and retain when we had, you know, labor contracts up in the air, and I'm concerned about that, right? Because we're competing.
How do you plan on retaining teachers when you're willing to pay teachers that have been here for a year more than you're willing to pay me at 16 years? How do you plan on keeping me, because I will leave?
Okay, well, again, you know, Dr. Moore's given his pledge of us continuing to work with you guys, but we can't pledge money we don't have yet, or don't know what we have yet. And that's really.
So are you going to write a counter?
This was our offer today, so.
So the offer we
You guys
have on
can
the
find
table
it.
from you is not 4%, it's 2.8%, and the math is incorrect. So we will kindly not sign that one. It's not correct.
That's, no.
Then Yeah. we can
The
talk this morning
counter
and do
needs
it.
to be,
So the counter needs to be
Or-
written.
okay,
And then what about any of the others? Performance pay, the half an hour, we doing anything with any of these?
The half hour again, our proposal is a 1-year agreement to get this year done. Therefore, the pay for performance and things like that still need discussion for a multi-year consideration.
Okay, well, we,
Go right up.
yeah, it needs to be written. I mean, I'm not looking at something that's not written.
Of course. So we will go get that document right now, and, or I can just run.
So is performance-based staying status quo then?
Yes.
So we're gonna continue to pay and.
So look at it, we just, it's getting late, but I'm all in. Can we go write that up and let you caucus and think through and see if there's anything you want to respond to? Sure. Absolutely, let's do that real quick. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
You're off, stop recording.
Matt?
Matt, stop recording.